Life is a journey full of unexpected twists and turns, and along the way, the people we love walk with us for only part of that path. Having a partner to share both the joys and challenges of life, especially through youth and into our later years, is a true blessing. But sometimes, that journey together ends sooner than we hope, whether due to illness, accident, or other hardships. When a spouse passes away, the house feels emptier, and the world can seem colder. It's as if the steady support we once leaned on has suddenly vanished, leaving us to face a future that feels uncertain and lonely. Yet, life does not pause for grief. Though it's natural to feel heartbroken and lost, we must find ways to heal and continue living fully. This is not just about moving on, but about honoring the love and memories we shared by embracing the days ahead with courage and grace. In this video, 3 experienced individuals share their heartfelt stories and wisdom to help anyone facing the loss of a spouse understand what to avoid and how to nurture a life that remains rich, joyful, and meaningful well into the later years. If you are not subscribed, subscribe and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't, please comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and make better videos for you. Now, let's begin. 3 refusals after losing a spouse. First refusal: immersing in excessive grief for too long. When you reach a certain age, you realize just how precious shared time can be. You and your spouse might have built a life together from scratch, picking out furniture in your first small apartment, welcoming children into the world, weathering financial storms, and marking anniversaries with laughter or quiet meals at home. For many years, you both were a team, sometimes arguing, sometimes agreeing, but always together. It's easy to believe, in the quiet comfort of a long marriage, that this partnership will last forever. Yet, life's reality is rarely so gentle. Losing a spouse is not just losing a person. It's losing the sense of home, the daily rituals, and the certainty of having someone to share tomorrow's plans or tonight's worries. The silence in the house grows louder. The empty chair at the dinner table, the side of the bed that no longer moves with another's breath, the soft echo of voices in old photos, these become reminders, day after day, of the void left behind. For many, the grief can be overwhelming, a weight pressing down on every moment, threatening to steal the colors from the world. But while grieving is natural, and tears are both a tribute and a release, there is a danger in letting sorrow take root for too long. Immersing yourself in endless mourning may feel, at first, like a way to honor your loved one's memory. You cling to old habits, talk to their photograph, replay memories over and over as if hoping to bring them back. Yet, the more you surround yourself with sadness, the less space there is for life, for joy, or for the gentle hope that healing can bring. The depth of grief. Ms. Lay, now 67, knows this journey well. 3 years ago, she lost her husband, Tom, after decades together. They had retired early, looking forward to traveling across the states in their RV. "We were always making plans," she remembers, "for next spring or next Christmas. Suddenly, the future was just me." In the months following Tom's death, Ms. Lay found herself unable to sleep. She would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every laugh, every moment of his final days. Her family visited often, bringing food or urging her to join them for outings, but she could not find joy in any of it. There were days when getting out of bed felt impossible. Nights, especially, became endless. She would reach for Tom's hand in the darkness, only to remember he was gone. "I felt like a ghost in my own house," she admits. Nothing tasted right, nothing sounded good, and the future seemed like a flat gray line. At times, she wondered what the point was. She felt as if her reason for living had disappeared with Tom's last breath. This is the ache of real, raw grief. And it's a pain that millions of older Americans understand all too well. Losing a spouse is ranked among the most severe traumas in a person's life, sometimes even more than losing a parent or a child, because your spouse is the one person who was supposed to walk beside you until the end. When they leave, it feels as though the ground has disappeared beneath your feet. How grief can become a trap. At first, friends and family try their best to help. They call, send cards, or encourage you to take up old hobbies. But as weeks and months pass, the world quietly expects you to move on. Grief, however, doesn't obey calendars or social norms. If you let it, it can become a second skin, a shroud you wear everywhere you go. For some, this turns into depression or a deep inertia, where daily tasks like showering, cooking, or seeing friends become insurmountable challenges. There is a danger in staying here, in this place of sorrow, for too long. Your physical health can start to suffer, appetite disappears, sleep is elusive, and aches or illnesses linger. Mentally, the world loses its sparkle, and you may push away the people who care about you, not out of anger but because you no longer believe happiness is possible. Spiritually, you might feel cut off from faith, from the comfort of traditions, or from the sense that life is worth living. A moment of awakening. For Ms. Lay, the turning point came one afternoon when her granddaughter came over and found her weeping in the living room, clutching an old photograph. Instead of urging her to cheer up, the young girl crawled into her lap and simply sat with her. She didn't say a word, Ms. Lay recalls. She just held my hand. That silent presence reminded her that she was still loved, that life had not stopped completely, even if her world felt broken. Later that night, as she lay in bed, Ms. Lay remembered something Tom used to say, "Don't let the living be buried with the dead." It struck her how true those words were. She realized that if Tom were watching, he would want her to find peace, not to erase his memory, but to live in a way that honored the years they shared. Slowly, she decided to take small steps out of her sorrow, even if at first it felt unnatural. The gradual process of healing. Healing after such a loss is not a switch you flip. It is a daily, sometimes minute-by-minute, effort to keep living. At first, it might be as simple as opening the curtains each morning and letting in the sunlight, or making a cup of coffee and sitting in your favorite chair. For Ms. Lay, it meant starting to keep a journal. She would write letters to Tom, sometimes angry, sometimes grateful, often full of longing. Over time, the act of writing helped her organize her thoughts, release her pain, and recognize the small moments of hope that crept back into her days. She began to set goals for herself, however minor. Walk around the block, make a healthy meal, call a friend, tend to her garden. Each accomplishment was a reminder that she was still here, still capable, still herself. The emptiness never truly disappeared, but it became less all-consuming. She learned to accept that sadness would visit, sometimes without warning, but it no longer defined her existence. Reaching for connection. Another part of healing, Ms. Lay discovered, was opening herself up to others. She joined a local book club, at first, just to listen. The stories of others, their laughter and their struggles, gradually reminded her that she wasn't the only one carrying loss. She also began volunteering at the community center, reading stories to children whose parents were at work. The bright, unfiltered joy of those young faces was infectious, and for the first time in many months, she caught herself smiling for no reason. Her days became fuller, not because she was erasing Tom from her heart, but because she was allowing herself to live again. She realized that healing wasn't a betrayal of love. It was the ultimate way to honor the life she had built with him. Each moment of courage, each act of kindness, whether to herself or others, became a quiet tribute to their years together. Honoring the past, embracing the present. Letting go of grief doesn't mean forgetting. Old habits die hard. She still found herself setting 2 places at the table or reaching for the phone to share a joke with Tom. But she learned to acknowledge those moments with gentle acceptance, not self-reproach. "I started talking to him out loud," she laughs. "If anyone overheard, they'd think I'd lost my marbles. But it helped. It made him feel close, even as I let him go." On what would have been their 50th anniversary, Ms. Lay invited her children and grandchildren for dinner. They lit a candle for Tom, shared stories, and toasted to the memories. Instead of an evening soaked in tears, it became a celebration of love, resilience, and the life that continues. It was bittersweet, she says, but mostly sweet. Advice for others walking the same path. For anyone struggling to move beyond grief, Ms. Lay offers heartfelt advice. Allow yourself to feel it. Cry when you need to. But don't let it take over everything. Find small reasons to be grateful. A bird outside your window, a phone call from a friend, the smell of fresh bread. These little things can become anchors, keeping you tethered to life when you feel like drifting away. She urges others to seek help if needed. Many churches, senior centers, and community groups offer grief support programs. Sometimes just talking to someone who understands can lighten the burden. Therapists and counselors are there for more than just big problems. Sometimes they can help you untangle the knots that grief leaves behind. Most importantly, Ms. Lay says, be patient with yourself. Healing is not a race, and everyone's journey is different. Some days you may feel strong. Other days, it's an effort to get dressed. Both are okay. The point is not to rush or to force yourself to move on, she explains, but to give yourself permission to live again, at your own pace. Rediscovering life's meaning. As time passed, Ms. Lay noticed subtle changes. She started baking again, filling the house with the comforting smells of cinnamon and vanilla. She began sketching in a notebook, doodling flowers or birds she saw on her morning walks. Evenings were no longer just for TV. She would call an old friend, read poetry, or simply sit on her porch, watching the world go by. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Sometimes, on clear nights, she'd find herself talking to Tom under the stars. I'd tell him about my day, about the silly things the grandkids did, or how my neighbor's roses are blooming early. I'd tell him I miss him, but also that I'm okay. These quiet moments became sacred, a bridge between the life she had and the life she was building anew. The gift of solitude. For many, the prospect of living alone after decades of marriage is frightening. But with time, solitude can shift from something to fear to something to savor. There is a certain peace in setting your schedule, eating what you like, and rediscovering who you are outside of the role of spouse. Solitude offers space for creativity, reflection, and personal growth. Ms. Lay began attending art classes at the community center, where she met people from all walks of life. Widows, widowers, and even a few never-married folks who became fast friends. These connections enriched her world, adding color to her days. She realized that she was not alone. Everyone has lost someone, and everyone is searching for meaning. Finding joy again. The journey through grief is long and sometimes winding. There are setbacks, birthdays, anniversaries, holidays that bring the ache back into sharp relief. But there are also victories. A day spent laughing, a letter from a friend, a moment of pure contentment while sipping morning coffee in the sun. For Ms. Lay, the greatest victory was realizing she could carry love forward without being anchored to sorrow. Tom will always be part of me, she says, but my story isn't over yet. There's still life left to live, laughter to share, still sunsets to watch. She believes that the best way to honor the one you lost is to live fully, bravely, and with an open heart. A message for all who grieve. To anyone who has lost a spouse and feels trapped in an ocean of grief, know this: your pain is real, and your love is valid. But your life, your precious one-of-a-kind life, still holds meaning, purpose, and possibility. You are allowed to mourn, but you are also allowed to hope. You can remember, and still dream. You can miss what was, but welcome what is. The road ahead may be lonely at times, but you do not walk it alone. Around you are friends, family, and even strangers who know the terrain, who can walk beside you for a while. Allow yourself to lean on them when you need to, and to stand strong when you can. Above all, Refuse to let grief define the rest of your days. The love you shared is not diminished by your healing. It is magnified in your resilience. With every new memory made, every new friendship forged, every day lived with intention, you carry a piece of that love forward, lighting the way, for yourself and for those who will one day walk this path behind you. Conclusion of the first refusal. Life after loss is never quite the same, but it can be beautiful again. The first, and perhaps most important, refusal is this: do not surrender to endless sorrow. Honor your grief, but do not become it. There is strength in letting yourself heal, in opening your heart to new experiences, in finding purpose even in solitude. Miss Lay's story is just one among many, but the lesson echoes across generations. Grief is a guest, not a permanent resident. Let it visit, let it teach you, but do not let it take over your home. Beyond loss, there is life, messy, unpredictable, sometimes painful, but also full of small joys waiting to be discovered. In the end, refusing to drown in grief is not only a gift to yourself, but a tribute to the partner you lost. They would want you to live, to smile, to embrace the days ahead with courage. And so you do, one step at a time, savoring the sweetness of each new day. Second refusal: over-reliance on children for the rest of your life. After the shock and deep ache of losing a beloved spouse, it's only natural to seek comfort in the presence of family. For many American seniors, children become both a source of pride and a lifeline. These are the sons and daughters you raised with sacrifice and care. You stayed up late nursing their fevers, cheered them on at Little League games, and watched them walk across the graduation stage with tears in your eyes. As the years slipped by, you watched your kids build their own families and careers, becoming busy, independent adults. In the first lonely days after your partner passes, your children's voices on the phone can feel like a warm blanket. Their hugs, their home-cooked meals, their offers to help around the house, all are deeply comforting. Sometimes, one of them may even suggest you move in together for a while, to keep you company or to make sure you're not all alone. For some, this is a blessing. For others, it becomes a crossroads. Do you rely on your children for all your support in this next chapter of life, or do you try, as hard as it may be, to stand on your own feet again? Children's independence and their own families. Mrs. Howe, now 65, has lived through this very struggle. After her husband, Bill, passed away from cancer, she was left with a house full of memories and a future that felt frighteningly uncertain. Their daughter, Sarah, had recently given birth to a baby boy, and her son-in-law, Mike, warmly invited Mrs. Howe to move into their home for a time. At first, this arrangement seemed perfect. The house was full of life, a newborn's cries, the aroma of coffee brewing in the morning, the happy chaos of a young family finding its rhythm. Mrs. Howe poured her heart into helping out. She took on the cooking, the laundry, and spent hours rocking her grandson to sleep. It brought her joy to be useful, to feel needed again, and to watch her family blossom. But as months turned into years, subtle changes crept in. Sarah and Mike, both working full-time, struggled to balance careers, parenting, and their relationship. There were nights when dinner was rushed and conversations felt tense. Mrs. Howe started noticing that Sarah seemed impatient at times, and Mike, though always polite, would sometimes retreat into his world after long days at the office. Slowly, Mrs. Howe realized that her presence, once so warmly welcomed, was now a constant fixture that subtly shifted the dynamics of the household. The easy laughter faded, replaced by careful words and the occasional unspoken tension. The burden of living together and conflicts. It's a delicate dance, this intergenerational living. For a while, everyone may be on their best behavior, adjusting routines and making small sacrifices out of love. But over time, differences in habits, opinions, and even values come to the surface. Mrs. Howe was used to a tidy home and had firm ideas about raising children, including regular mealtimes, polite manners, and discipline when needed. Sarah, on the other hand, believed in a more relaxed approach, letting her son explore the world, even if it meant a bit of mess or a tantrum now and then. Inevitably, there were disagreements. Mrs. Howe found herself biting her tongue when she thought her daughter was being too lenient, or when Mike let their son eat dinner in front of the TV. Sometimes, the tension simmered until it boiled over. Sharp words exchanged over small issues, misunderstandings that cut deeper than anyone intended. The home that once felt like a haven now seemed smaller, crowded by too many personalities, each yearning for respect and space. There were also financial strains. At first, Sarah and Mike offered Mrs. Howe a small allowance to help with her expenses, but as the months rolled on, this stopped. "You have your pension, Mom," Sarah explained. "We're saving for the house, the car, daycare, college. There's so much to think about." Mrs. Howe understood, but couldn't help feeling the pinch, especially when she contributed to groceries or utilities. She sometimes wondered if she was now a burden, unintentional, but real. Rediscovering interests and building a fulfilling life alone. One evening, after a minor argument with Sarah about the grocery budget, Mrs. Howe sat quietly on the back porch, watching fireflies dance above the grass. She remembered the days when she and Bill would sit together after supper, sipping sweet tea and talking about nothing at all. For the first time, she allowed herself to wonder, was this the retirement she wanted? Did she want to spend her golden years tiptoeing around her own family, constantly questioning if she was in the way? The next morning, over coffee, she broached the subject gently with Sarah. "I think it's time for me to go home, sweetheart," she said, her voice trembling only a little. "I'm grateful for everything, but I think we all need a little more space." Sarah was surprised, perhaps a bit hurt, but she understood. There were tears and hugs, and even a few laughs as they packed up Mrs. Howe's favorite teapot and the box of family photos she always kept on the nightstand. As she drove away, Mrs. Howe felt both sadness and relief, a door closing and another unknown door opening. Back in her own home, Mrs. Howe faced days that stretched out, silent and empty. At first, the loneliness was nearly unbearable. She missed the noise, the laughter, the baby's soft giggle. She missed being needed. The house felt too large for one person, and at night, every creak or groan of the old floors seemed to echo her solitude. But as weeks passed, something shifted. She found herself sleeping better, waking up when she wanted, and making breakfast at her own pace. She rearranged the living room, painted the bedroom a soft sage green, and planted marigolds by the front steps. She began to explore old hobbies, calligraphy, watercolor painting, even a little bird watching from her kitchen window. She joined a local senior center, where she met a group of women who gathered every Tuesday for coffee and conversation. They swapped stories, shared recipes, and planned trips to museums and parks. Mrs. Howe even took a pottery class, her hands clumsy at first, but growing steadier and more confident with each new creation. Slowly, she rediscovered the quiet joy of being her person again. Children need space to grow, too. As she built this new life, Mrs. Howe saw her daughter and grandson often, but their visits became more precious, more deliberate. They would have Sunday brunch together, laughing over pancakes and sharing family stories. The time apart, rather than weakening their bond, made it stronger. Sarah had space to focus on her marriage and parenting. Mrs. Howe had the dignity of her routines and dreams. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. There were times, of course, when she still felt pangs of longing. On birthdays or holidays, she sometimes wished for the old chaos, the family crowded around the table, the shared noise of generations living under one roof. But she understood now that the most loving thing she could do for her children was to give them room to build their own lives, just as she and Bill had done decades ago. One day, as she sat painting a small landscape, Sarah called. "Mom, I'm so glad you decided to do what makes you happy," she said. "I worry about you, but I can hear it in your voice. You sound more like yourself than you have in years." Mrs. Howe smiled. She realized that by refusing to lean too heavily on her children, she'd not only reclaimed her happiness but had freed them from the guilt and stress of feeling solely responsible for her well-being. Why over-reliance on children can backfire. This story isn't unique. Across America, millions of seniors find themselves tempted to center their later years around their adult children, moving closer, sometimes moving in, or expecting daily calls and visits. In some families, this works beautifully, a tapestry of shared care and respect. But in many, the pressure builds quietly. Children in their 30s, 40s, or 50s are often juggling careers, mortgages, their children, and the relentless demands of modern life. Their hearts are full of love, but their days are packed with obligations. When parents become emotionally or physically dependent, it can create a sense of guilt or resentment on both sides. The parent may feel overlooked or neglected. The child may feel overwhelmed or inadequate. There are also generational differences in values, lifestyles, and priorities. Seniors who grew up during the Great Depression or the boom years of the 1950s may have very different attitudes towards saving, spending, discipline, or even technology. These differences, once amusing, can turn into sources of tension when families live under one roof. Some parents, remembering the sacrifices they made for their children, believe it's only natural for the favor to be returned in old age. But times have changed. The economy is tougher, expectations are different, and the nuclear family has shifted. Many seniors find that their children simply cannot provide the kind of daily attention and support that was once expected. Nurturing independence and mutual respect. The healthiest families, Mrs. Howe realized, are those that balance love with respect for boundaries. She decided to maintain her health, financial stability, and sense of purpose, not just for herself, but to ease the burden on her daughter. She organized her finances, updated her will, and researched long-term care options so that, should her health decline, she would be as prepared as possible. She also learned to ask for help when she truly needed it, but not to demand more than her children could reasonably give. She celebrated their successes, supported their choices, and cheered them on as they navigated the roller coaster of midlife. Their relationship deepened, no longer built on duty alone, but on shared laughter, honest conversations, and mutual respect. A message for seniors navigating this path. If you're in this season of life, widowed, alone, and wondering how much to lean on your children, take heart. There is no shame in asking for help, but it is just as important to maintain your independence. Build your routines. Make new friends. Seek out community, whether at church, the local library, or the senior center. Rediscover hobbies that make your soul sing. Stay curious, stay involved, and don't be afraid to chart a new course, even if you do so alone. You may be surprised to find how much you still have to give, to yourself, to others, and the world. The confidence that comes from living life on your terms, even in small ways, is a gift both to yourself and to your family. At the same time, keep your heart open to your children. Offer support when you can, accept it when needed, but let go of the idea that your happiness depends entirely on their presence or approval. Love is not measured by proximity. It is measured by respect, kindness, and shared joy. Conclusion of the second refusal. The journey into older age is not meant to be walked alone, but neither is it meant to be carried entirely by your children. Refusing to over-reliance on them is a gift to everyone. It preserves your dignity, protects your relationships, and allows your family to love you freely, not out of obligation. Mrs. Howe's story is one of courage, honesty, and growth. By stepping back, she discovered a new layer of strength she never knew she had. By refusing to depend completely on her children, she made room for them to thrive, and for herself to rediscover the joy of independent living. Remember, your later years can be a time of renewal, purpose, and adventure. By balancing connection with independence, you create a legacy of resilience and grace, lighting the path for those who come after you. Third refusal, rashly finding a new partner or remarrying. When the person you built your life with is gone, An aching emptiness can settle into every room of your house and every corner of your heart. The future, once colored with shared dreams and familiar routines, suddenly looks uncertain and cold. Friends and neighbors mean well, offering comfort and support, but when evening falls and the house is quiet, loneliness creeps in with a heaviness that is hard to describe to anyone who hasn't lived through it. In those first months and years after losing a spouse, the sense of being set adrift is often overwhelming. All the small daily decisions, the cup of morning coffee, the choice of what to watch on TV, even which side of the bed to sleep on, become reminders that you are now making your way alone. It is only natural to long for companionship again. After all, we are social beings, and the warmth of another's presence can seem like the only thing that could fill that space. Some find solace in family, friends, or faith. Others are drawn toward seeking a new relationship, a hand to hold, a voice in the dark, someone to share the journey ahead. The temptation to remarry. There is nothing wrong with yearning for connection. After decades of partnership, the rhythms of shared life become second nature. When a spouse passes, many older adults find themselves questioning whether their loneliness is a sign that it's time to move on, to invite someone new into their life. In some circles, there is even gentle encouragement to start over, to give love a second chance. But there is a world of difference between a carefully considered decision to begin anew and a hasty leap into remarriage or partnership simply to escape solitude. The line between seeking comfort and rushing headlong into a new commitment can be blurry, especially when emotions are raw and the ache of absence is most acute. Challenges unique to senior remarriage. Mrs. Fong, now 62, experienced these challenges in a very personal way. When her first husband, Richard, died of a heart attack shortly after retiring, she felt as if the ground had opened beneath her feet. They had built a life together, raised a son, and weathered their fair share of storms. Now, with retirement looming, Mrs. Fong faced not only grief, but a frightening new question. What does the rest of my life look like without him? For the first year, she barely left the house except for church and groceries. Her son, worried by her withdrawal, suggested she consider moving in with him or joining a travel group for seniors. "Mom, you've given up everything for Dad and me," he said. "Now it's time to live for yourself." At first, she resisted, feeling guilty for even imagining joy after loss. But eventually, she agreed to join a poetry and dance class at the local community center. It was there that she met Mr. Liu. He was kind and attentive, quick to notice when she was struggling with a dance step or seemed sad. One day, after she twisted her ankle on the stairs, he helped her to the hospital and made sure she got home safely. Over the next few weeks, Mr. Liu visited her, bringing meals and gentle conversation. His steady presence was a balm for her loneliness. The allure of new companionship. At first, Mrs. Fong was cautious. She worried about what her son would think and whether it was too soon. But after years of routines shaped around someone else, the comfort of having a new friend was undeniable. When Mr. Liu suggested they start seeing each other more formally, Mrs. Fong hesitated. Should she allow herself to be happy again? Should she wait longer, or seize the chance for new happiness before it slips away? Her son urged caution. "Meet his family," he said. "See what his life is really like. Don't rush into anything, Mom. You deserve peace." But the prospect of love was so inviting, so different from the echo of her empty home, that Mrs. Fong brushed aside her worries. They married within a few months. Unforeseen complications. For a while, things went well. Mrs. Fong enjoyed the sense of purpose she found in caring for Mr. Liu and helping around his house. But soon, cracks began to show. The habits and routines they each brought from decades of separate lives collided in small but persistent ways. Arguments over household chores or finances quickly turned into silent resentments. Mrs. Fong felt invisible when her suggestions were dismissed, or worse, when she was reminded that she was not really part of Mr. Liu's family. The biggest challenge came when Mr. Liu's grown son divorced, leaving a young grandson in their care. Mrs. Fong, who had always loved children, tried to nurture the boy, but he was moody and difficult, spoiled by his grandparents and grieving in his way. "You're not my grandma," he shouted more than once. Mr. Liu, defensive and quick to anger, sided with his son and grandson, and Mrs. Fong found herself shut out of family decisions. Suddenly, the companionship she had craved became a source of stress and heartache. She missed her own home, her old routines, and the sense of being enough that she'd had before remarrying. After less than a year, Mrs. Fong filed for divorce, feeling more isolated than ever. Why hasty remarriage can be risky. Mrs. Fong's story is not unique. Across the country, many seniors who remarry in haste discover that blending families, finances, and traditions is rarely simple. Children and grandchildren from previous marriages may struggle to accept a newcomer. Long-held habits, developed over a lifetime, may clash in ways that neither partner expected. Even well-meaning attempts to start fresh can lead to misunderstanding, resentment, and loneliness. There are other practical considerations, too. In the United States, remarriage can affect Social Security benefits, pension plans, and even the inheritance you hope to leave for your children. These financial complications are often overlooked in the heady rush of new love, but can become sources of regret later on. Most importantly, the emotional stakes are high. When we seek a new partner primarily to avoid being alone, we risk attaching ourselves to someone who may not truly fit us. In the urgency to fill the void, red flags may be ignored, incompatibilities papered over, and warning signs dismissed. The gift of patience and discernment. None of this is to say that finding love again in later life is impossible or wrong. Many seniors discover deep joy in new relationships, romantic or otherwise, after losing a spouse. The key is to move slowly, with eyes and heart open, honoring your own needs as well as those of your family. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Mrs. Fong, looking back, wishes she had spent more time truly getting to know Mr. Liu and his family before tying her life so closely to theirs. "I was so lonely," she admits. "I rushed. I wanted to belong again, to feel like part of a team. But I forgot that you can't build trust or family overnight." She learned to ask hard questions. What are this person's expectations of me? How do their children and grandchildren feel about this relationship? Are we financially compatible? Do we share similar values, habits, and dreams for the future? Am I pursuing this because I truly want a partner, or because I fear loneliness? With time and healing, Mrs. Fong found that her loneliness did not have to be a curse. She made friends at the senior center, began volunteering at a local animal shelter, and discovered that solitude, while sometimes sharp, was also filled with possibility. Building a life that is enough. There is a lesson here for all who walk the lonely path after loss. Companionship is precious, but peace is even more so. It is better to be alone in contentment than partnered in misery. It is better to build a life that feels full, through hobbies, friendships, faith, or service, than to rush into a relationship that brings only more heartache. For those considering a new partnership, Mrs. Fong suggests giving yourself time to grieve fully, to rediscover who you are as an individual, and to rebuild your happiness before blending it with someone else's. Don't rush, she says. You are not less for being single. There is no shame in living alone or in wanting to love again. Just move slowly and trust your gut. The importance of communication and boundaries. If and when you do meet someone who feels right, keep the lines of communication open, not just with your new partner, but with your children and loved ones. Talk openly about boundaries, financial arrangements, and the role of extended family. Be honest about your fears, your hopes, and your expectations. Sometimes, the best companionship is found not in remarriage, but in close friendships, travel partners, or community involvement. There are many ways to combat loneliness that don't involve tying your life to another's in legal or financial ways. If you do choose to remarry, approach it with patience, respect, and care, honoring the memory of your spouse. Another reason seniors may rush into new relationships is the belief that happiness must be found again in the same way it was found before. The truth is, every love story is unique, and the relationship you had with your late spouse is not something that can, or should, be replaced. Honoring their memory means permitting yourself to heal, to carry their love forward, and to open your heart when, and only when, you are truly ready. This might mean traveling solo, picking up a new hobby, writing, gardening, joining clubs, or mentoring younger people. Many seniors find that their capacity for love and connection grows in unexpected ways after loss, once they let go of the need to replicate what was. The courage to wait. The pressure to pair up can be subtle but persistent. Family members may worry about your well-being. Society may suggest that single seniors are somehow incomplete. It takes courage to resist this pressure, to sit with loneliness until it softens, to let time reveal the next right step. Trust that, in the quiet, your wisdom will speak. Mrs. Fong says she now cherishes her mornings. Coffee on the porch, sunlight in the garden, a sense of freedom she hadn't felt in decades. She has learned to be gentle with herself on lonely days, to seek connection with friends, and to trust that her story is still unfolding. If love finds me again, she says, I'll be ready. But until then, I'm enough. Conclusion of the third refusal. Life after loss is full of choices. The longing for partnership is deeply human, but so is the need for peace and self-acceptance. The third refusal, resisting the urge to rashly find a new partner or remarry without true readiness, protects your heart, your family, and your future. It gives you time to grieve, to heal, and to grow into a person who can give and receive love from a place of strength rather than fear. Your later years can be rich and meaningful, whether you walk them alone or with a new companion. Let yourself move slowly. Let yourself trust the lessons of your past. Let yourself build a full life, on your terms, in your own time. The path may be winding, but you are not lost. Every step you take toward wholeness honors the love you shared, the memories you cherish, and the new days still ahead. And if one day a new partner fits naturally into the tapestry of your life, let it be a choice made in wisdom, not in haste, a celebration of everything you have become and everything yet to be. Looking back on all these stories, it's clear that the journey through grief and into a new chapter of life is never easy, and never quite the same for any two people. Each day brings its own set of memories, some warm, some bittersweet, and it takes time, courage, and a gentle heart to move forward after losing the one you've loved for so long. Yet within that challenge, there is also an invitation to rediscover your strength, to build a life that is meaningful and full, even if it looks different from what you once imagined. It's natural to miss the familiar comfort of a spouse, to lean on your children for support, or to wonder if you should seek out companionship again. But the richest years of life often come when we allow ourselves to truly embrace our independence, to nurture our passions, and to stay open to new friendships, adventures, and joys, no matter what age we find ourselves. By gently refusing to drown in sorrow, to rely too heavily on our children, or to rush into a new relationship, we honor not only those we've lost, but also the person we are becoming. If you're walking this path, remember that you are not alone. There is hope, there is healing, and there is still so much beauty waiting for you. If this story resonated with you, or if you'd like to share your own experience, please leave a comment below. Your story may bring comfort to someone else. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more heartfelt stories and practical advice for thriving in your later years. Let's build this supportive community together. One story, one day at a time.